domestic violence, you've been exploring, and I've followed closely your Senate committee estimates hearings on this purported link between gender inequality and domestic violence. Now, as I've read a fair bit of this literature as well, and I've read the literature that's been referred to you in those hearings, and to me it seems a lot of correlation without causation. So, for example, they'll point to things like, look, women are underrepresented in particular roles in society, boardrooms, the politics, there are gender stereotypes, and then they try and link that to domestic violence. To me, it seems very tenuous and the evidence doesn't seem to be there. Do you have any insight into that?
Yeah, you're right. The evidence is very thin. It's an answer which they'd like it to be true. You know, the word that is used for that is truthiness. It's not true, but it sounds as if it ought to be true. But they'd like it to be true. So what they do is focus on a problem, so domestic violence. Nobody argues that that's a legitimate problem. And then they go looking for explanations for it. They have an agenda, which is gender inequality. They're always looking for differences between males and females and saying that's unjust, and then they want to link the two. I've got a couple of real issues with this whole domestic violence campaign now because they're spending our money on it. I don't particularly care if they want to blame men for all the illnesses of the world. It's when they start spending money on it that I get concerned. Yep. And the domestic violence campaign is costing us quite a lot of money, and quite a lot of people who ought to know better are buying into it. And the assumption behind it is, of course, that only men are violent in domestic circumstances. Yep. Women aren't. Only women are victims.
Yep.
And that therefore we can say it's a problem of men, that all men are equally likely to engage in domestic violence. All men need to be, I suppose, educated to not engage in violent behaviour.
Yep.
There really is no other underlying cause that should be addressed.
Yeah,
that can be tackled at every level. The majority of domestic violence is perpetrated by men. By that I mean more than half. Yep. But there is a very sizable proportion which is perpetrated by women. There is male-on-male domestic violence, obviously, in gay relationships.
Yep.
There is female-on-female also in gay relationships, and female-on-men.
Yep.
Quite a lot of female-on-male domestic violence is underreported, and for obvious reasons. If a man goes to the police and says, I was beaten up by my wife or my girlfriend or something like that, the response is often, well, you know, what kind of a pussy are you?
Yeah.
And, they're not taken seriously. And, of course, some men don't even go.
Yep.
Reported, so it's seriously underreported. Quite a lot of male-on-female violence is provoked by female-on-male violence in the first place, and that also doesn't get reported. It's far more complicated than simply men losing their rag and belting the little woman.
Yeah, I always wondered why, for example, when a house burns down, the fire brigade comes and pokes around to try and find out why the fire started. But if a man hit a woman, any of the events leading up to that are excluded. All that matters is that he hit her. Doesn't matter if she hit him first. Doesn't matter if she threw something at him. Doesn't matter.
Right, that's right. And the other thing that's profoundly wrong about it is even when it is male violence against females, it's not all males are equally likely to be perpetrators. It's not spread evenly across all suburbs where men are found. It's not all types of men, all types of relationships, all socio-economic groups and all that sort of stuff. Yep. It is concentrated in certain ethnic and socio-economic groups. Yep. So for this start off, get them young, teach them not to be violent routine, irrespective of background, is profoundly insulting. The vast majority of people that they're aiming at would never be violent in a million years anyway. And there's no problem there to fix. And of course, from a taxpayer's point of view, spending money on such a generic, widespread campaign is huge waste as well, and likely to be totally ineffective, because the amount that's being spent in the locations and groups where there is an issue is too small to have make any difference anyway.
Yeah.
So they're not helping women by having this broad brush approach, and it annoys the crap out of me. I hate to see it occurring. I hate to see this idea that all men need to be embarrassed for the activities or the behaviour of a relatively small minority of men, and that all men are equally likely to lose it. It's simply not true. So the literature doesn't support the idea that it's all men. Literature doesn't support that it's all socioeconomic groups. The literature doesn't even support that it's just men. And yet that's what the campaign is all about. And I'm challenging it, as you know. I challenged it in estimates. I've got more work to do there. What I'm hoping to do is embarrass them into admitting that they've very selectively using the literature, very selectively using evidence, and to pursue amounts to an anti-male campaign.
Yeah, you said there that there's an underlying agenda, and one of the agendas, if there's more than one, I think is something I call jobs for the girls. You have people like Elizabeth Broderick running around basically telling every government agency that they're all sexist, and the way they're going to fix that is that they need quota systems to get women into the Australian Defence Force. The South Australian Police now has a 50-50 quota system. The New South Wales Fire and Rescue has a 50-50 quota system for taking in recruits, even though males apply to the fire brigade, and something like 6-1 against women. You see it popping up all over the place. It seems to be, or at least one of the agendas seems to be, to get more women into jobs where they're underrepresented. However, I never see feminists or these types of advocates arguing for more men to be teaching in kindergarten or for nurses. So it seems to be hypocritical for a start, these sort of quota systems. And I don't think it helps women, because it brings back all types of old stereotypes like, well, women are too weak and can't do certain jobs and they need a leg up all the time. It seems to me to be the soft bigotry of low expectations. But
yes, that's right. Similar sort of thing happened in America with blacks when they were said to be subject to institutional bias, and so they were admitted to colleges, for example, based on quotas, and it ended up harming their job prospects, harming them economically, because
the mismatch problem.
Employers would say, well, yes, they've got a degree, but yes, it's a black degree.
Right.
In other words, it's worth a lot less.
Yeah.
And the same thing is going to affect women. So, and I mean, there are some jobs that women are just not suited for.
Yeah.
And when you talk to some women, and quite a lot of them in strong leadership positions, they will say, women don't want to compete with men. They like being different from men. They like being treated differently. They like the fact that there are some things that they are better at than men, and they accept the fact that there are some things that men are better at than women. Yeah. And you shouldn't go and assume those differences are insignificant or can be engineered out of society. The military is wrestling with this a great deal. And so the Israeli Defence Force, for example, had women in combat roles. They now don't do that anymore, because they found that even though the women were equally aggressive, the men were unable to be aggressive because they're too worried about looking after the women. It just didn't work. And so they've now got women in non-combat roles, well, not grunt infantry type roles. So they could still fly jet planes and things like that. But I mean, I strike a lot of women who say, who would want to lead the life of a man anyway?
Yeah.
You know, the reality is that the pressure is on us to provide. There is a long-term, long-standing, hardwired reason why we work harder and strive harder, and that is to provide for our families.
Yep.
Women are genetically the ones who nurtured, and they were the ones provided for. And to suggest that we should take men out, or we should push women up into the provider roles, goes against the grain for a lot of women. Now, some women like that idea, and they aspire to those sorts of things. And of course, we shouldn't have any restrictions that prevent those women from achieving what they're capable of in those roles, if they want them. But as you said, if only 1 in 6 applies for a job in the police force or the fire brigade or somewhere like that, then why should we push women up faster?
Yep.
I asked the Australian Federal Police what their ratio of women was to me. They said it's 26% women to men.
Right.
And I said, what is the ratio of applicants of women compared to men? They said it's 23%.
Right.
So in other words, they are applying a small bias in favour of women.
Yeah.
I thought, okay, that's about as far as I'd like it to go.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're starting to accept people who don't qualify, reject people who do qualify on nothing other than gender.
Yep. Yep.
Is rejecting someone on the basis of gender is equally as bad as favouring someone on the basis of gender.
Yeah, I've always thought it funny that you can put the word positive in front of discrimination and pretend that it's a positive thing. That's what we call our affirmative action laws here. Isn't it sort of the hypocrisy of the whole diversity movement that, as you said, men and women are different. We have traditionally had different roles. That diversity actually denies the, shall we say, traditional or biological diversity between men and women in favour of a forced diversity which treats men and women as essentially the same.
Yeah, that's true. And I encounter a lot of women who resent that a great deal. There's a very big difference of opinion in female circles, in smart female circles over this issue. So the feminists and the anti-feminists, if you like. It used to be all smart women were feminists. They would say we want equal pay for equal work. We want equal opportunity. But it's gone beyond that now. They've got equal pay for equal work.
They want equal outcomes.
They want equal outcomes rather than equal opportunity. That's correct. And I meet a lot of really smart women who are very successful in life who resent the fact that women are claiming special pleading. They say, I got here on my merit.
Yep.
It's my merit that got me here, not because of the fact that I'm a female. I don't want other women getting where I got on the fact that they're women.
Yeah.
It just drags me down.
Yep, exactly.